Engel V Vitale was a case in 1962 which debated whether or not prayer in public school was constitutional. In the early years of the country, prayer was considered an essential part of education. Most students were the same religion, so no one really questioned whether or not this was appropriate. As populations began to diverse, people started questioning the legality of prayer in school. As a response to the overwhelming amount of questions about prayer in public school, in 1951, the New York State Board of Regents, who were responsible for supervising the state public school systems, approved a brief prayer to start each day. The board's approved prayer was as followed: Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our community. Though being the approved prayer, school districts were not required to use the prayer, and students were not required to recite it. In 1958, however, New Hyde Park school systems adopted the prayer and stated that it should be said every day in class, though students could be excused from saying it. Stephen Engel was a parent of 2 kids in the New Hyde Park school system. He objected to this practice and asked a state court to order the prayer dropped. Engel directed his suit against the head of school board, William J. Vitale, Jr. The state court and New York Court of Appeals refused to prohibit the use of the prayer. Refusing to be defeated, Engel appealed his case to the U.S. Supreme Court. The question before the court was whether or not daily prayer violated the First Amendment. The First Amendment applied to all states through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. This, of course, prohibits laws respecting the establishment of religion. This, in return, raised the question on whether or not daily prayer, although non-compulsory, violated the Establishment Clause. The Supreme Court ruled in Engel's favor 6-1. No one had contested the fact that prayer was essentially religious. The school board argued it was permissible because it was non-denominational, meaning that it didn't belong to any particular religious group. Vitale had also noted that no student was forced to say the prayer in school. Much to his surprise, the Supreme Court disagreed. The Supreme Court called the practice wholly inconsistent with the Establishment Clause. The Supreme Court stated that prayer, composed by government officials as part of a governmental program to further religious belief, breaches the constitutional wall separation between church and state. Hugo Black, who wrote the majority opinion in Engel's case, pointed out that those governmentally composed prayers for religious services was one of the many reasons why early colonists left England to search for religious freedom in America. Black also specified many purposes of the Establishment Clause. The first purpose was to prevent the union of government and religion, which Black claims tended to destroy government and degrade religion. The second purpose was to express the principle that religion is too personal, too sacred, and too holy to prevent unhallowed perversion by a civil magistrate. The third and final reason was to prevent religious persecution, which has historically arisen from governmentally established religions. Black concluded by saying that the nation, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights were all established in order to avoid these sorts of problems. The case's closing statement was that the New York laws officially prescribing the regent's prayer are inconsistent both with the purpose of the Establishment Clause as well as the Establishment Clause itself. As a result of the case, the court's decision provoked widespread controversy. Civil libertarians hailed it as a victory. The case was one of the first in a series of cases in which a variety of religious activities sponsored by the government were found to violate the Establishment Clause. This case, however, was the first case which effectively prohibited the government from sponsoring or endorsing official prayer in schools. Overall, Engel V Vitale is what created the change on separation of church and state issues in the latter half of the 20th century.